All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Tabitha Rose. Tabitha, awesome to have you on the show today with us. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited for this.
I'll tell you, I am too. I am really stoked for this. I want to start off by just giving a shout out to Giovanni Marsico, because you and I were on probably a couple of weeks ago. Gio does these like calls each week for his for clients of his and people that attend his events, and he's got this group called Synergy, and I've been a part of that group for, well, gosh, about a year now, because I went to his Austin event last year. And then when I joined that, he said, Kevin, I'm also going to have you be a part of the Synergy, where we host calls every week on Zoom. And on one of those recent calls, he was on there just raving about you to the group and stuff. And so as he's raving about you, then I'm sitting there and I just look you up on Facebook, and I'm trying to like learn more about you. And through that, I ended up sending you a message, and like, man, you know what? I love how Gio just speaks so highly of you. And of course, Gio and I, we go back. I mean, gosh, I've probably known him for 12 years now and stuff. And it's
Yeah.
just absolutely phenomenal to see what he has done with the Archangel brand over that time period and stuff. And Gio is one of those guys who has such a huge heart and is making such an impact in this world. And so anybody that comes into my life through Geo, I mean, man, they go right to the top of the pile, you know. So you and I have had a conversation already, got to know each other a little bit, and then I asked you if you'd be open to doing a podcast interview, and you said you would, and here we are, and I am like so excited for this. And
Yeah, Gio, I appreciate if he says kind things about me in front of other people. Honestly, the most meaningful, I think, memory I have of Gio was at an event, and he has this like quiet strength about him when he's in events, and we were, we've known each other for some years, and he like pulled me aside, and he's like, I just want to let you know something. I gotta tell you something. I'm like, what? And I thought I was like really serious or something. And he's like said something to the effect of, you're like one of my favorite people, right? And I was like, really? And I so appreciated that because like it was just, the two of us, and I could feel his heart.
yeah,
Um, and I know he meant it.
yeah,
So
yeah, for sure. You know, when you are, and what a testament to the power of relationships, which is, of course, what this podcast is all about. It's all about relationships, and the right relationships with the right people. Because when we have the right relationships with the right people, man, it makes everything easier. Because like I said, anybody that comes into my world through Geo, and I'm sure you feel the same exact way, Tabitha. Anybody comes into your world through Geo, if Geo says, Tabitha or Kevin, I want to connect you with so and so, and here's why. I mean, that immediately gets our full attention because of the source, Geo. Yeah, no.
yeah.
And it is such a testament to the power of right relationships. It just makes everything so easy and rewarding, and because there's trust in both character, and there's trust in competence. And when those two trusts are placed, and then there's alignment between values and interests, man, get ready for some magic to happen, because everything is lined up then. And so I want to just start by turning it over to you, Tabitha, and just give you the opportunity to share, talk about, what you do, who you serve, what inspires you most about the work you do and the impact you get to make through your business. And also give us some of the backstory, because I want to just really give the listeners an opportunity to get to know you a little bit and find out what you're all about.
Okay. Where do I start? I guess I'm the founder of Life to Paper. Life to Paper is made up of a publishing house,
Okay.
a nonprofit, um, an annual festival, and I guess a bookshop as well.
Okay. Okay.
So under the Life to Paper umbrella, our mission is to write a better future. And how we do that is help people put, brave stories to paper, to help them heal and and inspire others as well.
Mhm. So how did you get into this? What was the evolution, Tabitha? How did this even start?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about that because it's this a year we're celebrating 10 years of Life to Paper.
Okay.
So it's kind of a, milestone and
Yeah.
back to where I was 10 plus years ago. This very much was not my plan at any point when I was in high school or in university or even just after university. This was not the direction I was pointed in. I was pointed in the direction of business and politics, and very, very much sure I was going to make that work.
Okay.
Um, and I thought that was a version of me that the world preferred to see. I think I'd sort of buried my passions, thinking they're not practical, they're not worth anything, they don't have any value. They're just sort of they're a part of my weirdness and like nobody cares about that.
Mhm.
And I was trying really hard. I was, early career, you're like have all this energy. And I was set off on a path to capital markets and, was like a little investor relations manager. Um, and I was struggling, but I thought that struggle was something everybody felt. I'm like, everybody's acting, everybody just fakes it, and then until they make it, one day it'll all feel right. But it didn't feel right. I liked elements of it, but I did feel like I was a circle trying to fit into a square, like, and it just wasn't working. Um, I think to cope with all the uncomfortability I felt and the restlessness and like discontentment I had inside me, I used alcohol.
Okay.
And that got to be pretty bad,
Mhm.
pretty unmanageable. And but I couldn't see it at the time. Like that
Mhm.
was the problem. So I got fired and got another job, which I thought it was better. And I thought I'll show them, and got another job and was let go again and was really devastated. Like, what's this just like I just can't do life. Like it's just not working for me. I'm making a mess of everything, and I'm really trying. And it was someone, said to me, a kind person said to me, look, like, I don't know what's going on with you, but I think you need to take a break. And I wasn't in the mindset of like taking a break. I was in the mindset of like push harder, you know, get back up, get a better job, show them type thing.
Mhm.
And suggested I go out to the West Coast and spend some time with this man who was a psychotherapist, but was sort of like a magical mentor.
Okay.
And I thought he was gonna sit with me, talk to me about all my problems, and then help me get a better job.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Like dust myself off, sort out some stuff, untangle some knots, and like and keep going in that direction. And we start talking, and I guess to rewind a little bit, a year or so before that, my grandmother had mentioned one day we spend a lot of time together. We're very close, and she said, I'm going to hire a ghostwriter to write my life story. And I had said to her, don't hire a ghostwriter. I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll write your life story. I mean, I already know, I know the major points, and I want to know more. And I don't know, let me do it. So she
Uh-huh.
said, okay. So we sort of started. I didn't really know how, but had the instinct that I knew how. I'd never done it before, but it was sort of like, I can do this, no
Uh-huh.
problem.
Mhm.
And we started spending more time together, and there was something about that time spent with her that I felt very present. Like anywhere else, doing anything else, I was thinking about being somewhere else. I would, at work, I'm thinking about being somewhere else. I'm restless, restless. The restlessness was gone when I was with her doing this. And
Mhm.
I didn't know what that meant, but fast forward back to Vancouver with his name's Michael, this mentor, I'll call him. He somehow got me talking about this thing with my grandmother. And I guess he saw, I don't know, the way I looked when I talked about it, or he saw something and he said I should lean in. And I was like, lean into what? It's just a thing with my grandmother, it's for her, it makes her feel good. Like it's not anything. And he was like, well, what if it could be? He just asked me the right questions to get me thinking. And at the same time, he asked me to go out after our sessions and like go down to the market and if I smelled something delicious, buy it, eat it. If I saw something like he helped me start to reconnect with myself and and also start to think about um this life story writing thing. And it was that then I started to lean in, like he said, and I thought, okay, well, I like doing this. Could I do this for other people? Like, I guess, yeah, okay. So what does it look like? What does it cost? An agreement, a name for this thing. And that's when I sat down with sheet of paper and wrote, pen to paper, life to paper. And that I said, oh, nice. Okay. And the .com was available. And then it was like, yeah, that's a sign.
Mm.
And it was just a series of like continuing to lean ins that led to me doing this full time and eventually getting well, getting sober as well.
Wow.
And at first it was just that. It was really such a privilege to spend time with people who weren't my family and get to know them better than their own family and write about their life through their eyes. Um, I really found myself like enjoying the time spent with these other people too. And but you're figuring it out at the beginning, right? You're still sort of like, what is this? And I thought the value was like the book. It was all that people cared about was me handing them a book at the end of this. And then I started to get people saying to me, you know, this has really been valuable. And I said, what? We're just talking. No, the talking though. And I was like, well, it's really valuable to me. I'm glad you feel the same way. And I started to realize that the process was helping these people in different ways. They were untangling knots and coming to genuine realizations for the first time about things and sharing things with me they hadn't before hadn't shared with anyone before.
Yeah.
Sometimes those things would make it into the book, sometimes they didn't, but it was just important for them to share. And
Mhm.
I locked it away in my vault like I did with some things my grandmother shared with me and that's it. They're with me and them and that's how it will stay forever. Um, and then one day a man approached me and talked to me about his story and was really brave and it felt really important. And I said, of course, I'd love to work with you. And he said, I'll send you the manuscript. And I said, well, if you've written it, why do you need me? And he said, well, I got to put this out there. I said, well, I don't do that. And he said, I think we could figure it out. And the figuring it out led to publishing. So then that sort of expanded Life to Paper to be helping people write their books as well as publish them. And it just kind of evolved. It evolved. I did a lot more of this ghostwriting, 10 years ago, 8, 7 years ago. I don't do as much anymore. It's sort of evolved into a hybrid publishing house
Okay.
where most of our books are written by the authors.
Okay.
And we, help package them and publish them and put them on bookstore shelves in the hands of people we feel need them the most. and support them along the way through the whole author process, which can be wild, exciting, nerve-wracking, scary, all
Sure.
kinds of emotions, but where it's a very personal process the whole way through. Um, whether it's like developing the book to editing to designing to marketing to all the things like the whole team values like time spent with our authors, and that's been really, really important. That was the part of it that when I look back to 10 years ago, it was like, that's what I enjoyed the most. I don't want to lose that.
Yeah.
So that personal time is really important. So yeah.
Yeah.
And it's,
Wow.
what it is today is probably going to evolve a bit more by next year,
Sure.
next couple months even.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's kind of the fun part too, is just like Michael said, like
Yeah.
lean in, just keep leaning in and I don't know, I've learned to stay open-minded and stay teachable. I feel like I'm more teachable than ever. By no means at this point do I think I'm an expert and I know it all. I've learned it all. I've been through it all. No way. Like there's so much still to learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a privilege I get to wake up every day and still do this. Because if you had like, over 10 years ago, I would have had no idea that this was what was coming.
Hmm.
It was very scary for me to be at that point and, you know, um, of unknowns and, being let go and not thinking very much of myself. And now if I would have been able to look to the future and see this, I wouldn't have believed it,
Yeah.
probably. Be like, no way.
I can totally relate to that. I can
Yeah.
totally relate to that. Yeah. And what an amazing story that is, and what amazing journey of personal growth that it's been for you. And while also you just allowing you to not just impact the lives of the people that you get to directly work with and serve, but that you get to impact so many additional lives because of all the people who get to read these books that you help get out into the marketplace and stuff. And how many lives are you really impacting? It's pretty phenomenal. It's pretty phenomenal. And I remember I had done this interview with this guy. I got connected with him. He was a friend of a friend, and he wanted to do an interview with me. And because my friend was like, "Hey, you should really consider this," and I'm like, "Okay," I said, "I'll do this." And we were set up to do an hour and a half interview, and hour and a half wasn't long enough. And so we scheduled time to finish the interview later on another appointment. But even on that first part of the interview, I found myself, like you said, sharing things with him that I had never shared with anybody before. It's so much so that I even told my wife about it. I'm like, and even my wife was like, honey, I've never heard you talk about this stuff before.
Mhm.
And it was such a powerful experience. And now I've been able, I mean, I've had a lot more experiences like that now. I've
Mhm.
had some of those experiences with Gio, and in his circles. And I've been able to provide that kind of experience for a lot of other people and a lot of other entrepreneurs too and stuff. And it's been pretty dang awesome to be able to facilitate that too. And so I'm just curious, what is and you don't have to talk about any specific names or anything, but what's an example of a a result that you've helped one of your clients get that you are just incredibly proud of?
Mm. Gosh, one example. You always ego wants you to think of like the big achievement, you know? Um, there's, I think for these big wins, like big wins, I mean, every author has the same but also different intentions. Um, and like for some of them, it's as simple as like visiting the bookstore that, they've been to the most of any bookstore.
Mhm.
And they like visited that bookstore through all their life experiences, especially the tough stuff and like, you know, um, and their book is there now, and the book is next to someone they really admire. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. I know that in terms of moonshots, I think it was I remember like having like body goosebumps when one of our authors, um, her book had come out almost a year before this day.
Okay.
And we're hosting our book festival, and she was, of course, attending and speaking. And she walked in, and I could just see her like really excited. And she said, I gotta talk to you. You're like the second person I've told this to, but I'm about to sign a deal with Lionsgate. And I was like, oh my God. And I know what that meant for her because it was like her, moonshot. It was like, oh,
Yeah.
this story. She had a vision and she has an intuitive. So it was really interesting to see like, oh wow, like this happened.
Yeah.
Like, she really had a clear vision of this, and it's on its way to becoming real. So that was pretty cool too. And I think that very first publishing project where the man sort of had written a book and I was shocked he was reaching out to me, and we sort of figured it out together. It was really rewarding for me to, go through that process with him. He was terminally ill. So
Okay.
we knew he didn't have, time was not on his side, and
Yeah.
to be able to figure it out for him before that time was really fulfilling. Um,
Wow.
that was a
Wow.
story he hadn't shared with anyone before. It was of um, childhood sexual abuse. Not a single person knew besides his late parents. And when his parents had found out about what had been happening to him, they they said, we're never to speak of this again. They packed up the house, they burned all the childhood photos, and they moved, and they never spoke about it again. And
Wow.
so, yeah, it meant a lot, I think, to go through that process with him and then see it out in the world and partner with child advocacy associations, branches, and have the book get out to all of them, and even have him get to speak at one of them, which was great.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And some professors picked it up for their course curriculum, and it was like, yeah, this is good.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
really phenomenal. Wow. How, I mean, it's that kind of stuff that just, just impacts us and just really inspires us to just, man, I want to do more of that. I want to cause more ripple effects like that in the world. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And yeah, wow, congratulations. That's so awesome.
Yeah, we
Well,
like the tough stuff. We like
yeah,
the,
yeah,
I guess I relate to the tough stuff,
yeah, totally.
understand. Um, and so I can meet any other person at a place where um I understand and I've experienced something similar, and and we can share. And a lot of the process is that sharing,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
conversations like this one where we have an exchange and um, get to know each other better. I think the people I've worked with, especially on the ghostwriting side, probably get to know me as much as I get to know them
Uh-huh.
because
Hmm.
of that, exchange.
Yeah,
That
for
and
sure. That is awesome. Wow. Well, okay, now that we've got some context set here, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit. I'm going to reiterate the question around relationships for the benefit of our listeners. So, Tabitha, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons. And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Mhm. I mean, when you frame it that way, I mean, relationships to me are everything from family, friends, and some relationships that may have been short or just in my life for a short period of time. That doesn't mean they have less meaning. Um, but what changed the course of was the woman who brought me out to Vancouver and introduced me to was actually her brother.
Okay.
And he and I sat with each other frequently over the course of a month and a half, and that changed the course of my life.
Okay.
Without that conversation, there go the dogs. Without that conversation, my I wouldn't be where I am today. I
Okay.
really don't think so. I think through it, and I think maybe it would have, finished the project with my grandmother, and it would have been like a nice, but I don't think I would have had the courage to consider um that I could do this for other people. I don't think so.
Ah, ah.
Yeah. So
So,
those
so how did that unfold? So, to give what was that experience like for you, Tabitha?
of sitting with this
Just,
mentor.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that was going back to Vancouver and, sitting in this office and, the catalyst to me going out to Vancouver was that I was on a plane headed for San Antonio, Texas, and I collapsed on the plane and was rushed to the hospital. And that was a signal to those in my life, like something's going on. And this woman was the one who really, paid attention and was concerned and said, "Hey, I think you should come out and stay with me for a little bit." And when I got there, said, "Hey, I don't know if you'd be open to this, but my brother, what he does, he's really special. And would you be open to meeting with him and, talking?" And I was sort of like, "Yeah, okay." And that's what you started these, started going there for sessions every other day or something like that. And I thought, he was going to kind of like talk to me about my problems, fix me, help me get a better job and like put all this behind me. Maybe learn how to drink normally.
Mhm.
That would be a bonus. But he didn't really want to talk about any of that stuff. He's like, "Why would we spend time in the basement? We can talk about your gifts." I'm like, my gifts. Like I really didn't think much of myself. Um, at that time to think like I have gifts, you know? And he found it. He found it somehow. He found it. And then he said I talked to him about the project with my grandmother and
Mhm.
I'd agree. I'd offered to write her life story, and he was like, lean into that. And I'm like, to what? It's nothing. He's like, no, it could be something. And he sort of just asked me the right questions to get me thinking.
Yeah.
I remember continuing to see him for about a year or so.
Okay.
And I remember saying to him, I think more than once, I said, "You really have made me feel like I figured this out myself. Like I know I wouldn't have if not for you, but you've made me feel um like I have my agency back, like I'm reconnected with myself because I think that you know little Tabitha who was like writing stories and would run up to her teacher with like basically my version of a book when I had a project to hand in, I'd make everything into a book.
Mhm.
I designed the cover page, I'd always do way more writing than what was asked of me, would run up to my teacher and be like, here it is, so excited to share it with her and get her praise back at me and encouragement. By the way, I still am connected with that grade 8 teacher too, which is really
Wow.
nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I reconnected with her after I started Life to Paper, and she said, you are doing exactly what I thought you'd be doing.
Mhm.
Like this, I know, she said that I made an impact on her when she was a teacher, and she had made such an impact on me when I was a student. So it's been this really cool relationship of like she was such a cheerleader for me then, uh and it's how many years later, many, many years later, she's still cheering me on now.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That is so awesome. And that is awesome that you guys are still connected and that she got to see, you just really start using your gifts and abilities to make such an impact. And what a powerful story of just even the process that you went through in discovering those abilities and to now be able to use them to help other people, to help authors get their book out there into the marketplace and to have get their message out there where it can impact the right lives and stuff. I mean, that is just a really powerful thing. And yeah,
A lot of the subject matter we deal with, because it's the tough stuff, as I call it,
yeah,
our target audience for is in a great deal of pain and fear because of what they're experiencing: mental health, addiction, abuse. So that our audience isn't exactly in a position maybe when they first, hopefully when they first get the book, where they're, I read this book, because that outs them, that
uh-huh,
tells they're hiding, in shame often. And I read this book, and it's maybe at a certain point, and it could be a year or more down the road, but like when it first reaches them, they're usually not wanting to share, because
yeah,
that will reveal what this struggle is, and there's the stigma and the shame
sure,
of
sure,
mental health, addiction, abuse, and the tough stuff. So our authors know that, and they're like, that's okay, because while reviews are nice and they're certainly helpful, and we do our books do get reviews, our authors, I mean, pretty much across the board, all of them will say what means more is the private message I got.
yeah,
I got a message from this person, and that to me is what means the most.
yeah,
It's okay they didn't leave I understand, right?
yeah,
It matters to me that it's helped them.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's interesting because I know in my work, I'm kind of like this behind the scenes guy
Mhm.
that I I connect the right people with the right people so that they can make a bigger impact. And it just leads to deals. It just leads to business deals getting done. But it's about relationships first.
Mhm.
And I get to connect some pretty big deals together. And on the other end of those deals, all those lives that get impacted, they'll never know that I was ever there. And I am totally cool with that. I am totally cool with that because I know, you know. And I don't need to be on stage and I don't need to be front and center or anything like that. I'm totally cool with being the behind the scenes guy, just doing my thing, you know.
Yes, me
And
too.
it just it's incredibly gratifying, incredibly rewarding. I can only imagine how it feels for you being able to do the work that you get to do and serve the people that you get to do and make the impact that you get to make and stuff. And it's I mean, yeah, it's those private moments, it's those private conversations that we have that just remind us that, like, yeah, we're doing something important here. We're
Yes,
doing a very important work. We're making a big impact, and I'm committed to continuing to do this because I want to cause more of that, you know.
yeah.
And
I mean, I'm so fulfilled by the people, like our authors. One of the most fulfilling, I think, moments of my whole career and with Life to Paper was recently, and it's been a group of authors who've wanted to get together and create a collection of stories as a giving back project
Okay.
to
Okay.
support our nonprofit arm that goes into mental health and addiction treatment centers and brings life to paper for therapeutic purposes. Like the fact that these people who have books in the world, some of them just came out or came out within the last year or maybe
Yeah.
more, but they want to take time to spend to create something that could help people, both the book itself and the money raised from book sales go toward, someone who has endured, overcome something incredibly challenging, and to help support their story making its way out into the world. It's like these are all busy people and they want to do this, then they like really like they remind me like we chose Life to Paper because we want to support what you're doing.
Yeah.
We know there's like thousands of other hybrid publishers and self-publishing services and so many other pathways to publish. Like they remind me that they've chosen us because they want to be part of what we're building.
Yeah.
And they are, and like they're not just in words, but in actions. Like they're showing up to do something where, it's solely to give back,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, which is really nice. So yeah,
Yeah.
that
Wow.
project's gonna launch this fall, and it's been really beautiful um, to come together to tell our stories, to give back to someone else who probably, hopefully, that was is someone's moonshot or someone's dream of all dreams was like one day they'd hold their book in their hands, their story would be out there, and the scholarship will make that happen.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so
Wow. Wow. Well, Tabitha, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. And I know, I know a lot of people are at this point are going, man, Kevin, I really love Tabitha. I love who she is. I love how she shows up. And for anybody that's also thinking like, man, you know what? It might be worthwhile for me to have a conversation with Tabitha. She might be able to help me. For anybody who's thinking about that, how can any websites, any resources we can share so they can get more information on what you guys are doing?
yeah, absolutely. I make myself available like right on the homepage of lifetopaper.com. And
Okay.
that's life to paper, not the number two. And on that page, I say it, it starts with a conversation and that just continues. So I do make myself available to have connection calls with people who want to talk about their story, my story, the stories in general, writing a better future, a vision for a book, a manuscript, or any and all things around stories and our mission. So yeah, lifetopaper.com.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Any last thing you feel led to share before we call it a wrap, Tabitha?
I think that, you know, I thank you for all your kindness and compliments around um, what I'm doing here, but I honestly wouldn't feel right without sharing that um, this work is also very much for me. Um, the work, the people I work with, the mentors around me, the relationships are like it's like a big circle of care that has, being in recovery, it's kept me well, um, and continues like to keep me well. And so like, these stories are like my medicine,
Yeah. Yeah.
honestly. So it wouldn't be fair to say like, it's all for others. Like it's for me too.
Yeah.
Like, um, all the people I worked with have really impacted my life. They're some of the most important relationships in my life. Um, a big chunk of our community of authors are also in recovery, and they're people with like, 20, 30 plus years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, I look to them as like, guides, and they support me, in all areas of my life too. Like I have some authors who we still just get on a call once a week to talk about life, and they, kind of mentor me in terms of the business, um and it's really beautiful, really,
Yeah.
really beautiful. So
Yeah.
I get just as much out of this. This keeps me well.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm grateful. Yeah, I wouldn't have imagined this is where I'd be 10 plus years ago. There was no way would have said you're nuts. But I'm really happy that life and people guided me around the corner to this. It's changed my life.
Yeah. I really appreciate you sharing that, Tabitha, and just speaking so openly and so candidly about that. And because, when we do share, I mean, you know what? I loved you from the time I was on that call and Gio started talking about you the way that he did. I was like, man, I just really like this girl. And then, which caused me when I want to reach out. And then we had that conversation. And after that conversation, I loved you even more. And now after this conversation, I love you even more. and, uh, and, it's that being just open and candid that what really draws people to us because they can relate and that's what we want is we want to be surrounded by like-minded people that we can just speak openly and speak candidly where we can make real meaningful connection with and stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
so many of us are just starved for that, you
yeah,
know and the fact that your work not only allows you to provide such a valuable service for the clients you serve, but that it feeds you too, that it's as much for you as it is for them too and stuff, and man, that is just, I love that. I love that. And so, once again, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you, Tabitha. I want to honor you, and I'm totally excited to get this out there and share it with a lot of other entrepreneurs. So, thank you so much.
so much gratitude. It's been really nice getting to know you too. Our
Same.
first conversation, I know I think we had a hard time saying goodbye. So I was really looking forward to continuing it and still continuing it in the future.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, thanks again, Tabitha.
Thanks, Kevin.